It's the Redbird Reboot podcast. Are you ready to get rebooted, Cardinals fans? He settles down, at least in the zone, and does not stop running.
Blake Murphy.
This is the identity for the Arizona Cardinals.
The run defense is just horrendous, and it's been horrendous for the Cardinals for a long time.
And Marcos Labrada.
He's going to bring over his philosophy. It should make it better.
Present the hottest NFL podcast from the country's hottest state.
He should be turning around the logo.
Actually, some breaking news we can cover here. This popped up just about, 6 minutes ago.
It's Redbird Reboot.
Hello, Arizona Cardinals fans. Thank you guys for tuning in. We're going over the Walk the Mock live mock draft that's taking place. Without showing too much as far as with my screen or with the other spots, we're going to be doing a nice live mock draft tonight. So I'm going to share the screen at least to get a PFF mock draft simulation up for the most part while I take a look at the live draft as it is right now. So it's a quick draft, obviously. And right now we are on pick number 3. So I'm going to reset the settings for the most part here on the shared screen, and let me share that with you guys who are tuning in. Thanks for a second surprise show here today. Let's go ahead and kick things off. So this is with Walk the Mock, who I always enjoy doing with each year. It's always a good time. We are in our draft room right now. The Patriots are on the clock. Cardinals are up next. First 2 picks, a little bit of a surprise. We're going to actually, as far as I'm doing the draft room, we've got Drake May was taken number 1 overall, and that meant Caleb Williams went at number 2. So those are the first 2 picks that we've been able to see. I got 10 seconds left or so with the Patriots on the clock, and pick is now in. Cardinals here. We are on the clock. Patriots have selected Jaden Daniels. So definitely some interesting places here. Now in this situation, Cardinals fans, a lot of questions. People had wondered what was going to be the case as far as moving up, moving back. What would be something? I know that right now we've had at least has been a couple of different picks that have been available. Looking at the board and everything else that's come in, one of the things that we really felt was important was, for one thing, can the Cardinals get a Marvin Harrison Jr.? And if not, what would be the cost of having to trade back? How much would they want to trade back? And at the end of the day, I thought I wanted to go from something that would be exactly what I think the Cardinals could do that I would see, and probably not what I would like to do. But in this scenario, I did end up trading that pick to the Minnesota Vikings because I do think that there is a good chance that Monty Ossenfort is going to get a Godfather offer you can't refuse. And as a result, I think it's not what I would say, but it also gets to the spot of what I got and what was traded. So let me show this here on the screen. Vikings were willing to give up essentially the same as last year's trade. They gave up the 1.4, a fourth round pick that they would receive, and a 2025 round 3. Cardinals got pick 11, pick 23, as well as a 5th, a 7th, and a 2025 first rounder, which of course means that Marvin Harrison Jr. gets sent to the Chargers. That's one of the cases, at least, that I had thought would be one of the worst case scenarios, but also would probably be one of the better versions that you'd be able to see with. Right now, it means that the New York Giants are on the clock, and as a result, we have a couple of things, at least, that are situational for them. Right now, Malik Neighbors and Rome Odunze are the top on the clock. Now, obviously, Vikings fans are very thrilled. I don't know if J.J. McCarthy is going to fetch 3 first-round picks. It feels like it's a steep price to pay. It also feels like it's a steep price to say that Marvin Harrison Jr. is worth the 3 first-round picks. And I think it'll be really interesting to see how that all shakes out for the most part. Let me send a quick message here. So far as the draft is concerned, let me go ahead and switch back so you can see what we've gotten taken. So at pick number 3, of course, we had the quarterbacks. 4 quarterbacks went 1, 2, 3, 4. Definitely something that I think a lot of fans are going to be expecting when it comes to draft day. Cardinals did make that trade with the Vikings, and it's a 2-round mock draft, of course. So we did actually go ahead and let's see. We got about 30 seconds or so left. Let me make sure I process this trade. Vikings also gave up their 4th round pick. I think it was actually Cardinals, at least. They gave up their 2025 third. Cardinals received, actually it's 2025 on round 1. Cardinals, we gave up our round 3 pick, and the Vikings also had under that for the number 4 overall pick. And let me make sure I add the other 2. It was also around 7, 12, and 5, 22. So in the end of the day, Vikings end up getting 4th pick, get another one, and the next player it goes is Rome Odunze. Alrighty, that is a lot of fun. So yeah, the trade at least went through, and then Rome Odunze and Marvin Harrison Jr. were the players went. So this is kind of backing up part of what I've said, which is if you're going to trade away from the number 4 overall pick, you're probably not going to get Marvin Harrison Jr. You have to then take a look at it and say, are you going to turn down 3 first-round picks for him, or are you going to make a trade? I've said personally, I could see it playing out like this on draft day, much to Cardinals fans' chagrin. But I could also say that otherwise, you're not going to get him unless you actually make that trade. Let me go ahead here, and I'm going to take a look with another offer. Let me see who is left on the board. We have the Tennessee Titans are now on the clock. And so right now, at least what's left on the board, you have, of course, Malik Neighbors, Joe Alt, Rome Odunze goes at 6 to the Giants. Tennessee now is on the clock with about a minute left. These things can happen in real time where you'll actually send messages back and forth to people. A lot of fun, at least, to be able to take on some of that role of kind of doing a live GM for the most part. And let's take a look and see what we have next. So the top players, at least, that are there on the board, Cardinals are coming up to pick 11. That's one of the things, at least, where a lot of Cardinals fans don't get mad at me if that does happen on draft day. I would probably stay put and stay picking, but just the way that it's gone for the most part, you've got your top 2 receivers have gone. I think we could see another one popping up here. Let's take a look here. New trade offer come in place, at least for the most part. Okay, so now we have on our... Make sure I get this correct. Okay, sorry, I'm just going through some trade requests here while it's there. When it happens as live trades, it can always be a little bit of intrigue that can pop up, of course. I'll have to hold on for now. It's going to be a little bit later for the most part. Let me go here. There we go. All right. We are at Atlanta now, so at the 7th overall pick, we see Malik Neighbors go. So now you've got pick 8. Now, this is where I think that we're probably going to see a defensive player likely taken. What we immediately have had, as far as the mock drafts went, 4 quarterbacks, 3 receivers. I think that this is something that just kind of confirms, if Cardinals fans, this is one of the cases where I've seen a lot of people have said, hey, Cardinals, you've got enough draft capital. Let's say that you get a first-round pick next year. Can you offer 11 and 23 to be able to get back up into there to get one of those top receivers? Answer is no. The Chargers turned down trade request. Giants turned down a trade request. Titans took Malik Neighbors. They did not actually go up there and take one of the players that I think a lot of people expected in Joe Alt. These receivers are just too highly rated. So, and takeaway from all of this, Cardinals fans, if you want Marv, you can't trade down anywhere except for pick number, I would say 6, which is probably the closest. All right, got another message at least here. Okay. After that, Bears are now on the clock. They have Joe Alt taken. And now when you're looking at stuff with Cardinals fans, I think the biggest thing at least is... let me double check here with this one. Okay. There we go. So in this scenario, what I think we've seen, this is probably what's there with Joe Alt. The receivers went first. Joe Alt there went at 1.8. You've got Dallas Turner, Brock Bowers, Olu Fashanu, Quinion Mitchell, Terrion Arnold. And on this screen, at least here, Jerry Newton's up there. Cooper DeJean is up there. Quinion Mitchell. You've also got Laitu Latu is another player that's been connected to the Cardinals, either with a later pick or with an earlier one. So I'm curious. We'll see exactly how this goes. Let me share my screen so you can see our mock draft update. There you go. All right. Right now, at least, we have Bears are still on the clock with about 25 seconds left. And now the Jets are picking. So now at this point, we've already gone far enough. We're just going to have to wait this out. No point in moving up one extra spot. The Chicago Bears are taking Dallas Turner, edge from Alabama. So that seems to be, if the Cardinals move back to 11, their whole board is basically gone. You have... see, Malik Neighbors went, and then with the 8th pick, we saw Joe Alt was actually given to the Bengals in a trade. Woof! And that means that the Cardinals are now here indeed on the clock. Jets, at least with their pick, have taken Brock Bowers, tight end of Georgia. That's something a lot of people are expecting to have and take place. So now we'll get to walk through some of this with the live draft that's going on. As far as with the draft room, we've got a couple of players. Quinion Mitchell would fix some of the areas there, along with Terrion Arnold. You have an edge rusher in Jared Verse. You're also able to see at least a guy like Byron Murphy would be there, and an edge rusher in Laitu Latu. There's a lot of different options that you can go here for the Cardinals. I think if you trade back and are not able to trade up, out of all the players that are there, I would put 3 into that top tier. I think you'd have Quinion Mitchell would be 1. You would see Terrion Arnold would probably be just after him. I think that there's a good spot and fit there, but I just don't know about the draft capital. Byron Murphy Jr. is another one as far as defensive tackle. I do kind of prefer Jerry a little bit more. And then Laitu Latu, the question, of course, is going to be with the health. Let's take a look here and see what we've got for a trade offering. Oh, we've still got an offer, at least coming in for the Jaguars. We would basically get back to the 17th pick and pick up a 3rd round pick. As tempting as that is, I'm going to probably say that if I wanted to move back and get another 3rd round pick this year, it's a 2-round mock draft. I'm probably going to pass on that, at least for the most part. I could be able to go and counter where I'd give back a 3rd and get a 2nd, but I don't think that the Jaguars are going to want to do that. So I'll offer it all the same. 117, 216, and the 3.2. I've got 18 seconds left to make a pick, and it's going to then make the auto pick. If it is, I'm going to have to go ahead and offer that. It's not enough time left, I think, for them to make a decision. I'm going to go ahead here, and I'm probably going to say I'll take Laitu Latu as the edge rusher, because if you were talking about... There you go, trade rejected anyway, as I thought. If you're talking about the Cardinals and what their biggest needs are, there's a good move from Laitu Latu that he has, and he has the athleticism that still translate. There are obviously some health concerns, but one of the cases that we can see at least would be pretty handy, I think. The Cardinals, in this fact, need a lot of help. They passed on an edge rusher last year. They essentially have now passed on a wide receiver this year. There's going to be some guys who are available, however, later in the draft, and we'll be able to touch back in with that in just a little bit. Let me get back and update our draft board for you guys. So we have Joe Alt, followed, of course, with the likes of... I believe it was Dallas Turner, who I know the Cardinals would have interest in and would potentially move up for. You're also getting to see Mr. Brock Bowers. And in this spot, normally I would probably have gone with Jerry Newton because I do think he's got enough upside to be that powerful defensive tackle. But when you look at one of the top edge rushers in the draft, and really I do think that Latu is probably one of the top edge rushers, the biggest concern, of course, is health. And you got an interesting decision to make. Now, we have the Denver Broncos here on the clock. Cardinals, of course, still have picks 23 and 27, so going to be a lot of action tonight. Question is, do I sit still or do I potentially look at making a move up the list? Let's take a look here. All right. We are just about halfway through the first round. Thank you guys for joining so much. Just to kind of recap what we've seen so far. In our content creators mock draft, with Walk the Mock, I will retweet a little bit of what they've had for the most part. As of course you see, I took a realistic approach in thinking at the Cardinals. What I would probably do is say probably stay put, but when you get offered the 3 first-round picks like that, plus a bit extra that mirrors that trade down from the Texans last year, you know, you have to recognize, is a player worth 3 first-round picks? And it's a good question. In this scenario, I went and moved back to see, could I move back up to get another one of the wide receivers? And the answer is no. Marvin Harrison Jr., Roma Dunze, Malik Neighbors went at picks 5, 6, and 7. All 3 rejected trade requests to come in for the most part. Giants may have actually been willing to trade, but got caught up with something else for the most part. And, you know, that can happen too sometimes in the NFL. All right, let's go ahead here, and I'm going to find the Walk the Mock follow-up, and I will get that retweeted here onto my timeline. All right. Yeah, there's a lot of good features, at least that's over there for the most part. We have, and there you can see, at least for the most part, the announcement. Worked out. Thor was very, very willing and said wanted before the draft to work out a trade, get up to that number 4 overall pick. Part of it was going back and forth going, hey, like, I'm going to need a first next year. It's like, I don't know if that's equal. And the trade chart went back and forth. Finally, we're able to get something we could agree on, which was if he's going to give up the Houston Texans trade from a year ago, then I would move back and try to see if I could move back up, try to work out a deal with picks 5, 6, and 7. They all decided they didn't want to move when they were on the clock. So that just shows you, Cardinals fans, if we are going to get into a spot in the Cardinals, if you want a Marvin Harrison Jr. or if you want a top wide receiver, you may not necessarily get what you want. All right, let's check back in with our draft. And we still have a... Let's take a look in our lobby, see who has been picked. Alrighty. All right, so we have a interesting selection here, at least for the most part. So after, let me close these guys out. Sorry for you guys who are having to watch this. I got my 2 screens set up with the 3rd one going. This is just how these mock drafts like to go. NFL GMs have so much more. Let's catch you up. After the Cardinals picked, we saw Olu Fashanu went to the, I believe it was Denver Broncos, which sent Jared Verse to the Atlanta Falcons. And Cardinals fans, we are looking to see if we can try to see... Verse is one of those players I was looking at potentially moving back up for. I think with some of the upcoming picks, we'll take a look and see if I'm able to make a move up the board. Pick is in. Jaguars did trade up, so they actually are the ones making the trade. And their selection is Terry and Arnold. So they get their number 1 corner back. At least they traded up with the Saints. For pick 17 to 14. Just to make sure they could get ahead. And they're going to go ahead and take Terry and Arnold right there. So yeah, this is kind of some of the fun of live mock drafts when you're looking to be able to kind of work with people. And there's 2 minutes on the clock, different from most mock drafts where we have 10 minutes. A lot of people have worked out stuff ahead of time, so it's really a unique thing to be able to get to do. I do recommend if you spent enough time with mock drafts, you'll sometimes see the cases of, like in this mock draft, a Drake May goes number 1 overall, Caleb Williams goes number 2. Just that's the way it goes sometimes. Let's see. All right, so let's see how this goes with... All right. Yeah, so right now the Colts, I believe, are on the clock. They are at pick 15. And, guess what, guys? Cardinals have traded up. That's right. So I actually wanted really badly to be able to see if I could get one of the players that's here on my board who fell this far, and we'll take a look at least over here. So there's a couple of different options, obviously. I felt like that between being able to have the choice of a high second round pick and getting 3 firsts versus being able to recognize, hey, I could still probably get those 3 firsts, just being able to have one of those higher up. I'm going to go ahead and solve the corner spot for the Cardinals by taking Quinyon Mitchell, the cornerback. Cardinals now have addressed their pass rush, and they've been able to address the 2000, I think it was the cornerback room, at least by getting, at least in my board, probably would be my number 1 cornerback overall. He just seems to have that it factor compared to with Arnold having some questions, Khalid McKinstry some questions. He is a top corner. Wasn't able to package up enough to get high enough for the top edge rusher, but we got Latu, we got our top cornerback. We're really investing now into the defensive side of the ball. And we still have the 23rd overall pick. We're not going to, I believe, make any picks after that in the second round. It's only a 2-round mock draft, but I think being able to pick at 11, 15, and 23, if you're not able to get one of those top receivers, you might as well pour in resources to the defensive side of the ball. The Seattle Seahawks here are now on the clock. And let's take a look here at catching us up on our current draft. So, our current draft that we've done with our simulator, Cardinals actually did move up. We've got, let me filter this through with the trade requests. We actually had the Cardinals trade up here. They gave up 27 and 35 for 15. Some of you may think that that's a bit much. There is quite a big gap after here, after pick 35. I've got that 23rd pick still from the Browns that came, I should say, from the Houston Texans, at least. But then they traded that to the Vikings from the Browns, who then traded it to. It's a lot of fun, at least, here at that mock draft. Let me go ahead here and force that trade through. So far, at least as a haul, I've gotten Quinyon Mitchell, and I have gotten, I will say, let me see if I can see it here. Oh, Latu, of course. All right, so Seahawks are here on the clock making their selection. The Seahawks select Troy Fautanu, so that's going to be another guy who will face against new Cardinals edge rusher Latu in this scenario. And we have quite a few picks left before we get caught up. Yeah, it's one of the fun things that we'll do each year. I'm pulling up some of the other creators so I can give a shout out to some of the other guys who are doing things as well. Let's see, we have, I know Bucks Game Day and JC Allen is on. Alex Kozor with Steelers Depot is working in here. Got the mock draft guy, at least, is taking the Saints. Big Game Bengal, of course, is doing it for the Giants. Thor Neustrom, who we made the trade with for the Vikings, as well as Cardiac Cats. Bladen Kirk is the one who went and snatched the guy that I was looking to see about trading back up for with Marvin Harrison Jr., also got other couple people with like the Goat House YouTube channel, Sideline Scout, even the Cover One podcast. Good list of guys who are all in here working these mock drafts. They're the ones sometimes who know their teams better than a lot of the big draft people can. And sometimes, a lot of times, you'll actually see fans be able to kind of nail a player or a pick that they'll know that's going to fit a team that sometimes those bigger media people can hit. Sometimes they may not. All right, let's take a look back here. So yeah, with that 23rd overall pick, I'm thinking at least that there's a couple of options. We could stick and pick at 23 if we feel like a good enough talent has fallen, or we could be able to actually make a little bit of a sneaky trade back, at least, to be able to get a bit more. Let's see what we're at next, who is now on the clock. Okay, so next on the clock, at least now, the Bengals were actually the ones who I believe made the huge trade up for Brock Bow. I think it was for Joe Alt, so the Falcons, at least, seem like they've also been able to move back. So now you've got the... it's going to bother me if that's not correct, but what can you do? Now we have the Falcons were the ones who took Jared Verse in place of the Raiders. Raiders actually were the ones who moved back. Let me get this updated. Sorry for the confusion, folks, but live drafts. Ooh, this one's fun. Rams took Jerry Newton. That was one of the guys I was looking at to see if he would fall to 23 or not. Figured that I'd probably have to take either him or Quinyon Mitchell since we addressed the edge rusher spot and the Cardinals signed some defensive tackles. I put the emphasis there a bit lower while putting the emphasis on Mitchell a bit higher. Okay, so now that means that as we are catching up, we got Talies Fuaga was the pick for the New Orleans Saints. Let's go to the offensive lineman. Okay, and then that, of course, meant that at the pick 18, where they had been a trade up, the one that actually went there was Nate Wiggins. So you've got Nate Wiggins, of course, is the one who went, technically in this scenario, he would go to the Raiders, who traded with the Falcons, who traded with... and so it goes, the Bengals. Very fun trade there. Rams take Jerry Newton, their heir apparent to Aaron Donald. Very fun. So yeah, what do you think, Cardinals fans? Should I have gone and taken Newton earlier? Get kind of an impact on the line, waited a little bit for corner? It seems kind of like the Kool-Aid McKinstry has seen his stock fall a little bit for sure. All right, Steelers are here on the clock, and... Oh, and we just got confirmation, at least there. Yeah, the Giants at least just did say, yeah, I would have definitely given up the 6th overall pick for picks 11 and 23. So there you go. So that didn't happen because they said that they ended up getting distracted by something, and that just is part of these live draft years. Not going to happen the way with the draft rooms. With Walk the Mock, it's obviously going to be a situation where you'll get skipped and auto-picked if you're in that spot. But... it's good to know that there was someone who would have let me trade back up. I would have been able to take Rome Odunze then, would be picking then at pick 6, pick 27, and have a first rounder for next year. Steelers are on the clock, and they took Amarius Mims. So that means now we're coming up on the Cardinals. We have, of course, pick 21, Miami Dolphins, pick 22, the Philadelphia Eagles, and then the Cardinals are the team that is indeed coming up. All right, so I'm at pick 23 here. Let's take a look and see if we can have a little bit of fun here. Okay. Thanks, guys. Sorry, I'm just going through and getting the messages done, at least for the most part. Appreciate you guys zooming in, taking a look at this fun live mock scenario. I always enjoy doing it almost each year. We right now are seeing the Miami Dolphins make their pick. And the Miami Dolphins are indeed selecting, oh, there it is, Byron Murphy, defensive lineman from Texas. So they get their replacement, of course, for their defensive tackle who left in free agency. Quite fun, quite fun. Puts the Eagles on the clock. Now, remember, as Cardinals fans, I like Cooper DeJean a lot. I think that if he's one of those guys that would fall to your 27th pick, if you say took Marvin Harrison Jr. and wanted to address the corner spot, that may be a really good one to do. There's a couple of different players who are here that are really interesting to me as far as for that. And this would be, of course, the, I believe, final pick that I'd be making. I think is this 2-round pick, at least for tonight. So let me take a look and see what we have left. It looks like this may be our last pick, unless we're able to trade back up into the first or the second round. But it's kind of fun, at least, to be able to see it. Thank you guys for tuning in here. I know on a Saturday night with Easter weekend, there's a lot, so appreciate you guys who are wanting to watch through. Let me see who is going to be left here. All right. We'll take a look and play this through at least also as well to where the Cardinals would have picked to see who some of the players would have fallen before we'll call it a night here with our mock. And then I've got another mock draft at least that I wanted to go off of that included that Giants trade. Was hoping to kind of execute it here today, but that is just the nature of these live scenarios. All right, so we've got the Eagles are still on the clock. Cardinals are up next. So a couple of different options here. I'll start talking about them. We'll see who goes. The obvious answer for this here is them taking either Kool-Aid or Cooper DeJean. Makes the most sense. Their cornerback room needs help. You could also argue maybe them getting a J.C. Latham, a guy who could be a future offensive tackle, could be super helpful as well. Pick is in right now for the Eagles, and the Eagles themselves have selected Cooper DeJean, which is pretty much what I would have expected. They're able to get a player that is able to address quite a few of, I think, the issues and can play inside and outside. All right, so I'm on the clock now. So here I've got a couple of different options. So there are guys who can play inside and outside all over the place. There's a top linebacker in Peyton Wilson if I want to go with an all-defensive draft and feel fine taking that risk. You've also got a guy in J.C. Latham who I think could be a stud overall, at least at either offensive tackle or interior. You got a cornerback if you want to get two corners in Kool-Aid McKinstry. Those are two of the guys I think would be big. And you also Jackson Powers Johnson, which would be a guy who could then either take over as a long-term center, is a mauler in the run game. Like, he and Latham are both pretty effective players for the most part here. We'll hold on for a little bit to see, at least as far as trades go, but I do have a suspicion as to what I'll probably be going with here. It's one of those places where there is a combination of how are you going to be able to put both enough defensive talent around Kyler, how are you able to address stuff, and I think there are two directions here. I can go with a Jackson Powers Johnson, which would be one option. He would be the guy that I would say as far as for I would grade. He's a mauler, he gets after it. I felt like the Kyler having a stud center that he can have in front of him is huge. I think I like them more than a Brian Thomas. And the other one, at least with a J.C. Latham, I think he could play it inside or outside. There's all sorts of different options that I think you could see. We do have a few seconds left, and we have a trade back. That's right. Detroit Lions have actually traded up. There's enough guys here on my board at 23 that I'm looking at the board and going, you know what? I can probably take a move back over here to pick number 29, and I pick up an extra third-round pick. So the Arizona Cardinals in that trade, let's go ahead and get it done. We've got the Detroit Lions making their move up. I'm not seeing them on my little screen here. Let me zoom that in for those of you who are hoping I've been able to zoom this in for a while. All right, Detroit Lions 29, Cardinals 23, and they're going to offer... actually, let me make sure I can see this. Great. They offered pick number 73 overall, or pick 23. All right. Well, now as a Cardinals fan, you're like, all right, what is it that the team has actually kind of gotten done? Well, here's what we've had. We've been able to, so far, and I'll have the Cardinals be the team that flashes up here. So far, the Cardinals haul, we picked at pick 11. We were able to make a move up to pick 15. We then moved back from pick 23 to pick 29 because there's enough guys on the board, felt pretty confident someone was going to fall, meaning that we now have also pick 66, pick 71, pick 73, pick 104. If you guys are wondering if I would be potentially packaging in pick 66 and 71 to move up, you would be right. That's one thing that I'm looking at considering. We were not able to necessarily get... I think it was the third rounder that we wanted, which was going to be probably getting into that second round. But now we got a pick at 29. We've got 1, 2, 3 third round picks. If we want to get back into the second round tonight, that's a lot of ammo that we can move back up. And part of why I'd like to move back up is looking at, if not an offensive lineman or a guard, we passed at least there on Jackson Powers Johnson for the trade back. I'm thinking we could be looking at a receiver. So let me go ahead here and take a look back at my trade list here. Awesome. So we've got, there's a lot of fun coming up, I think, here with the state of the mock. Alrighty. Let me take a look here. See who we have coming up. So we've got a pick at 29. And it looks like we've got... there's some intrigue there. I will take a look at that. All right, we've got the player queue there. Thank you guys, at least for those who are still waiting through while I'm kind of talking through some of this. Right now, we've got a Another update after the Lions have made their pick. Lions did do that trade up, and with them on the clock, they took Brian Thomas Jr. Now, he's a unique case because he can probably have enough of an upside to be like one of those bigger X-receiver types. He had a lot of production. He had about 300 yards receiving in his first year, and then kind of boomed this year on a great offense. There's questions that I have, at least, because sometimes you'll see a guy on the low end be like a DJ Shark, and then on the higher end, obviously, you're looking at a wide receiver one. So the Dallas Cowboys were on the clock at least next, and I know exactly who they're going to take here because they're available. They took J.C. Latham, Oklahoma, I believe Alabama offensive tackle. Ooh, that's some fun there. That's just kind of the way where it went. Was Latham was a guy I like. I think you play him, at right tackle first, and then see about moving him inside to guard. That's a possibility, I think, if you're a Cardinals fan and J.C. Latham is there. There's just so many offensive linemen, wide receivers, and people in this class. Cardinals instead went the opposite. We went and got the defensive line, I think the edge help, and we got the cornerback, at least, to help on defense. That means that we're going to be looking to try to see what we can do for one Kyler Murray. Okay, let's see what we have. All right, so looking at my trade evaluation, this is part of where you'll go off of looking at, once you get to these spots, a lot of the times the trades are going to be very calculator friendly. And this is part of where you got to whip out that pen and paper just to make sure that you're actually adding stuff up correct. So right now we are at 29. We're looking to see, do we want to move up or move back? I think we're going to see about moving up from pick 66, 71, 73. 1 and 73. Oh, there's my dog barking for that just a second. And we are back. Awesome. All right, so let's take a look now. This will be kind of going through just a little bit of the process that you'll see with how teams will have it as well. They will a lot of times look at their draft value calculator to be able to figure out how much is that pick worth. There's a couple types you can use. The Rich Hill one I know is pretty popular. Let's see at pick number 66. That is the pick number 2 overall, I think, in the 3rd round. Arizona was able to actually give, I think it was, we give out that pick. Nope, still have that pick. Sweet. So that's going to be about 260 plus, and then you got pick 71 and 73, 235 and 225. So someone's probably going to check my math live on air, so let's not estimate and actually add this up. Got 260 plus, got 235 plus 225. All right, and at about a range of 720, that can get you into technically as high as the late first if you wanted to. Which is not too bad. I think that I'd be more likely to trade 2 of those picks to be able to try to move up. Probably about, I think you probably would say you could trade 66 and 71 would be able to get me back up probably somewhere into the 50s. That's one thing that I could see Monty Austinfort doing, is he could potentially trade up from pick 35 back into the 1st round, get that round 1 draft capital with that pick. You could also probably argue that he may be at the end of that 3rd round. He could potentially trade up if someone's there. They've got back-to-back picks. He could also potentially, with 3 3rd-round picks there, he could also trade back as well. And like, part of the craziness of Arizona's draft capital is I've already moved down, got a 1st-round pick for next year with the trade with the Vikings, moved back up to be able to pick at pick 15. I still have a 2nd-round pick and 3 thirds. So you're talking about within top 120, the Cardinals are going to be flush with being able to invest picks this year, which is really cool. All right, so let's go ahead and catch up people on our draft board here. So the Green Bay Packers went ahead and, surprise, surprise, drafted another a 1st-round wide receiver. Oh, Aaron Rodgers has got to be kind of rolling in there for the most part. Adonai Mitchell ends up going at that spot. You then also have the likes of a Jackson Powers Johnson going with that next pick. That was a guy that I was looking at. He goes at center for the Bucs. Now, so here in this situation, there's a couple of pretty good players that are around here. You've at least got, see how this is. So you got Kool-Aid McKinstry still on the clock. We've already addressed our corner position. You've got Graham Barton, tackle from Duke, who could be an interior offensive lineman as well, going with the trenches. Tyler Nubin, probably not a player I would take, at least not this high for sure. We got the Colts at least have just made their selection. The Colts are actually taking Xavier Worthy. All right, so that is it's an interesting pick there, at least taking the guy who I have to scroll a little ways down for. But when you look at that 4.2 speed, I look at him and I see, previously going, I would have probably been higher on him than others. I think I still see a little bit of an Andy Isabella type in terms of behind the line. I do think that he's bigger and tougher. He also has, as we've seen at least, a little bit further stretch down the field. I just think there's other receivers that I think are more proven. But this is a better spot to take him, would be later in the first round than it would be otherwise. All right. I have about 265. Let me get my good old calculator here. You guys for watching. Let me pull up what we have right now with our war room. We've gotten, just to recap for those who are tuning in later, 1.1 overall, Drake May was selected, followed by Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels. Cardinals were given that grandfather offer from J.J. McCarthy, to get J.J. McCarthy, I should say, from Thor. He worked out and reached out well ahead in advance, and I do think it's possible that that could happen before the draft if the Vikings do covet McCarthy. Came down to wanting to take Marv, but realistically saying Cardinals could trade back, and is there a player who's worth 3 first-round picks for the most part? It gave us enough flexibility after Marvin Harrison Jr. to try to trade back up. We're not able to get up there in time to try to trade back up for a Rome Odunze to be able to meet that need. So the Cardinals went defense after the likes of Alt, Turner, and Moore went. Cardinals are now back onto this clock, and the Bills have taken now. Ooh, Xavier Leggett, another receiver. Oof. All right, so Cardinals fans, we are now back onto the clock. We'll see if there's any trade offers that come in, but we got Latu at 11, Quinion Mitchell at corner. A lot of people are wondering, is this going to be more of you take a splashy draft, or do you take kind of stick to the trenches, build up the defensive line? I think that what we at least have seen in a lot of different ways, and this is part of what I feel like, is there is another player at least that's left on the board, and of course you've got right now Demarius Robinson, Tyler Guyton, Kool-Aid McKinstry. There's a lot of those guys who are left. We've addressed corner. We've addressed there. There's not an offensive lineman that I like. I could probably go with someone like a Keon Coleman, would be tempting for the most part. But in this case, the person who I actually would say would be really solid in this one, I would take, is Ladd McConkey. At 6 foot with his speed, he doesn't have the same stats that you would look for, but a lot of it's because I think that his role you would look for in the Drew Petzing offense, he would be kind of your move player. He's got the height that he'd be able to make through. He did a great Senior Bowl week. I think that he would be the guy that I would take here, knowing that the Cardinals are going to be featuring him and the tight end. And I think that when looking at a lot of their tape, there's times where McConkey was open, but he was kind of that guy doing the dirty work so that Brock Bowers could get the volume. I will be drafting Ladd McConkey here. Cardinals are able to then make their defensive line edge rush look better. They assemble help in their cornerback room, and they end up getting a wide receiver. Is he going to be a Cooper Kupp? It's hard to be able to say because Cooper Kupp has just become a Hall of Fame type player. A lot of people also just look at him and say, hey, he's Cooper Kupp, just put him in the slot, make him move. I think that you just need to get talent into your room if you're the Cardinals fan. And between the likes of the players who were left here, I felt like I didn't want to take a Tyler Guyton as far as with the offensive tackle. The Cardinals have added a tackle. He'd have to figure out where he's playing for guard. You already addressed the cornerback room. Graham Barton was the other one that I was looking at, but given the lineup with where things are with how deep tackle is, and that there is a drop-off, I think, at the end of round 1, you can see how we had, oh gosh, there is at least right now 3 wide receivers early. You also then have, this is the second run, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Yeah, Cardinals would not have gotten a top 10 receiver probably falling to them at the, not falling to them at least at that rate for going all the way to pick 35. Let's take a look here. Now I'm wanting to see about 5. That should get me up to. Okay, let's see if I'm able to make a move. All right, I'm going to go ahead and hop into the chat. Thank you guys again so much for watching. Just to recap so far, you can see I've got the 3 picks on the screen. Cardinals traded back, wanted to trade back up to 6. Didn't end up happening. Romo Dunze went there. So Cardinals, theoretically, if that goes through, could move back to pick 11, then move up, giving up pick 23, not pick 27, to pick number 6, not pick number 5, to get a receiver. With that gone, all 3 receivers went immediately afterwards, which means that I decided to say, hey, let's take a look at the biggest areas that we can address, get the best talents possible that we're seeing on the board. Quinion Mitchell, I think, is the top corner in this class. Made a move back up for him. Ladd McConkey, then, at least was the receiver I went with at pick 29 after moving back a few from pick 27. Okay, pick is now in here. Let me go ahead real quick and get the room chat here on private, and just in case people are here wanting to try to snipe me. Let's take a nice little look. All right, Keon Coleman went to the Chargers. Unique. Justin Herbert's going to get a big target. That's kind of their Mike Williams replacement. We'll see how his speed bears out as super athletic guy. Also, it looks like I didn't even notice this. Keon Coleman and Marvin Harrison Jr. on the same team with Bladen with that selection. Goodness, that is definitely one way to go out and replace when you get rid of Keenan Allen and let Mike Williams walk to the Jets. Woo. Alrighty, so Cardinals pick we are coming up, at least I think, in a while. I know right now I'm looking to see if I can get back into the second round because the last pick that I did, I traded up in order to get those 3 first-round picks. So again, we picked at pick 11, pick 15, pick 29. We still have pick 3.2 and pick 3.7. All right, let me make sure that I've got my ducks in a row here on this side. Okay, so let's see. So at evaluation of that, I'm going to be looking in a range of... This is where all the mock draft stuff gets really fun when you're trying to be able to do multiple things at once. Yeah, so Keon Coleman, the Chiefs are on the clock. Niners are apparently out of time. They're going to be auto-picked for unless they made a selection last second here. Let's see who they got. Oh, they got Demuin Robinson, Penn State edge. That would be also known as Chop Robinson. That was another guy that I looked for as far as with the pass rushing. The biggest thing with him is he does not have the production. He does have the athleticism. There are times where you'll see a guy like a Micah Parsons, and you have to say, hey, he could be Micah Parsons. He also could be one of those guys who's a very athletic edge rusher who needs some work and just is not able to get to the sacks. I took the more secure guy in. Laitu Latu was part of my feeling in this scenario. But if the Cardinals took Chop at 27, I would probably put enough faith in the likes of Monty Austin Fort and Jonathan Gannon and Nick Rallis to be able to have him be developed, because we've seen it before. Hassan Reddick had that 17-sack season, and the Eagles went out and drafted another linebacker right out of the likes of I want to say that Georgia defense, of course. Nolan Smith. They moved on from Hassan Reddick. Were able to sign Bryce Huff. Got a nice, interesting little kind of 1-2 there. I do think that it may be a trade that works out well for both teams potentially. It'll just be really hard to see if they could have re-signed Reddick and then Huff is not able to repeat. It's going to be something that I would have a hard time with doing. Let me take a look here now with this counting down, and I'm going to take a look at the upcoming draft picks. So my lovely little blue screen there for a quick moment, folks. We are taking a look at a certain range of picks here. So I'm going to be looking around between picks 45, 46, and 47 is going to be my range to try to see if I can use those 2 third-rounders to move back up in here. It is only a 2-round mock draft tonight. We're not doing all 7 rounds. We'll be here for quite a while. Let's see if I can try a little bit of digging here. Oh, Devondre Sweat. That is a solid pick from Texas. That's one of those guys that's just super strong. He's not going to be drafted, I think, as high as Byron Murphy, who is kind of a freak on a different level. But that is a good, solid defensive lineman there. All right, thank you guys for tuning in. We are approaching, at least right now, the Cardinals have our 2 picks there. We'll try to see if we can get back into the second round, and then as we wrap up for that tonight. Right now, however, I'm pull through these draft rankings and make sure that we're all good to go. All right, I'm just making sure I can see who's got picks that are upcoming here. So we are looking for, okay, got the Giants there, 216. Let's see how many second round picks. Aha. I think I spot one. Let me go ahead and try to see. I'm going to go ahead and have a couple of teams to make some trade offers for. And we'll see where it goes from there. Pick is in, and the Panthers are selecting Troy Franklin. The guy that I know that Johnny Venerable, I know, with PHNX, is a guy that really is high on Troy Franklin. We talked with Alex Clancy. He likes him too. I am not as high on him as others. I think that he's going to be a solid receiver at the next level. I think when you're trying to bet on upside or looking at what some of the guys do well, I think that he's a good X, but I do feel like in the first round is just a bit high. He still does profile, to me at least, as a guy that's going to go as a top 50 player, probably in any draft. I just think he's in a deeper class, unfortunately. And that's part of being honest with rating prospects and players. Let's take a look here and see what we have next. All right. So let's see where we had the Panthers had that one traded there. Let me see if yeah, Cardinals right now, at least after everything's said and done, they have pick number 32, 37, 326, 328. That's 4 third-round picks. It's quite a bit, obviously. Let's take a look and see what else we have left. So one of the things in this mock draft strategy that I'm doing is I'm trying to see if I can target and looking at teams that have multiple picks in the same round, because a lot of times you'll see guys trade back for more picks. Other times you'll see guys actually try to be able to trade up to get a specific player, and then it's usually a little bit more of the draft valuation there. I believe pick is in for the Patriots. And they are selecting Tyler Guyton. So he ends up falling all the way there to the top of the second round. I think that with the need for the Cardinals of needing an offensive tackle, he's a guy that I could still see them taking with the 27th pick, because you could look at him as a long-term tackle. You could even say that he sits for a year, and then next year, that's where you're putting the likes of a Tyler Guyton out there, while maybe moving the likes of a Jonah Williams inside. Definitely interesting to consider that as an option. All right, let's see what else we have for catching people up for the most part. So again, Cardinals, we did take the Godfather deal trade. Wanted to see if we could trade back and move up. All 3 teams went wide receiver. We're not able to get back up, so that's a good note for Monty. If you're watching this, just remember, you might not be able to get one of those top receivers if you trade all the way back out. We ended up meeting our receiver need with Ladd McConkey after going edge and cornerback, trying to round out some of the Cardinals, filling some of the needs, and trying to get some guys who I think are pretty much some of the better talents in this draft. All right, let's take a look and see what we have for. I'm going to try and offer at least another couple trades here. Let's see what else we have. Oh, Houston Texans are moving up, it looks like here. A lot of teams are looking to move up. A lot of talent falling across the board for the most part here. Let's take a look here. Oh, Ennis Rakeshaw. I like the other corner, at least personally, a little better, but he still fits as far as the modern NFL, has a lot of the athleticism. I think in a current modern NFL, which uses a lot of two high safeties, you can put him on one side of the field for the most part. I think that he's going to end up doing fine. It is just one of those interesting cases with guys who are a bit more slender and didn't have as much production as you would like to see. Let's take a look here and see what we have left with some of these other picks that are here on the clock. All right. So you got Graham Barton there goes in the 2-5 spot. Another guy I think that could be in play at 27 for Arizona. I think that he's one of those guys who you could line him up at tackle, but his best spot is probably as a guard. He also does really fit that, what would I call it? He really ultimately does fit that model of the guy who plays tackle because he's the best lineman in his spot. And I believe he also tested into, unless I'm mistaken, he was one of the faster guys with I believe it was 3-cone or a short shuttle. Cardinals are one of the teams now with Jonathan Gannon that they will look at offensive linemen who hit these different thresholds, including that shuttle, and they draft them. Last year, they went and took the one guy who qualified in John Gaines II. This year, they are probably going to be looking at someone like him, and I could see them looking at least at another player later in the draft. Dylan McDermott, I believe is his name. I think he was at North Dakota, either North Dakota State or Texas Tech. I'll have to double check on that. Oh no, Dylan McDermott. No. What am I even talking about? No, that's the actor. Yeah, I was about to say. Yeah, Cardinals are about to be drafting a 62-year-old actor at least there sometime in the late rounds. I mean, hey, it's your NFL team. You know, you can do what you want. They say. Alrighty, the Titans are there on the clock. And we're getting near the end, I think I run. If I'm not able to trade back into the mid-second, at least with getting up into that, might be it for picks today. Then we'll take a look at our haul. Looking at this scenario, at least, if I'm looking for someone like a Roman Wilson, Kingsley Matai, I believe, is still on the board. You got Chris Braswell, I believe, is still on the board if he's not taken here. Jordan Morgan goes. I think that his arms are going to make him a good guard, just not going to be the same as far as for what I think a lot of people are hoping that he'll be able to be. So, alrighty, and let's see what we have next. So we are next picking at 302. It is a 2-round mock draft, so trying to make some trades, see if I can get back into the late second. A lot of times, though, if it's a 2-round mock draft, people will try to get as many first and second round picks as possible. Just because that's where it goes. And the real NFL draft, a lot of times you'll see teams will recognize that the capital that they can make is pretty good. And there goes Darius Robinson. So you got Chop and Darius are both off of the board at that point. I've had a couple of trades I reached out to with the Colts. And it looks like I had, so looking at giving up a couple of thirds, getting up for the second. They did not, I believe, at least accept that. I'm going to see if I can keep this one here. And we're going to take a look at another team, at least, that's picking here in the second round. A team that gave up a lot of first-round picks, and their second-round pick would be the Vikings. They just are not going to be anywhere close to getting their guy. Let's take a look and see how our Jacksonville Jaguars are looking. They've got pick 216. I may need to keep looking at some of the other playoff teams like the Bills or others to be able to get back in. But I have a lot of fourth-round picks, and I'm looking to see... third-round picks, 4 3-round picks. I'm going to see if I can move them. Let's take that offer and see what we get. All right, Packers are on the clock. They took a... maybe it's just the Green Bay way as soon as they're out with Aaron Rodgers, but they ended up, surprise, surprise, taking Adonai Mitchell, one of the guys who I was looking at as a possibility for the Cardinals. If he was going to fall with 23, potentially trying to trade at least third and a second to get back up there, ended up trading back from there after he wasn't on the board. Still was able to get Ladd McConkey. Feel like that if you're a Cardinals fan, you're wondering, hey, like, if you're thinking that you're a Greg Dortch fan and you're wondering how could Greg Dortch and a Ladd McConkey both fit, part of it is because McConkey is someone who's big enough that he can go outside, but I think being able to move him around the formation and also recognizing like Dortch is probably going to get a lot of full-time slot work, but you've got Michael Wilson as an X. If you're able to put McConkey into a Z/slot role and knowing that you're going to have just 2 receivers on the field at all times, I think that may be optimal to have Greg Dortch, not necessarily saying that his production will always increase the more snaps he gets. I think it's being able to say, hey, we're going to keep you in that exact role of being able to get, 6 catches for 60 yards a game, and then having Ladd McConkey be kind of your other move player who can be a big threat. There's probably going to be a larger receiver that I'll want to look for, at least if I'm Arizona, back later in the draft if this was going into round 3, but for now it's just a 2-round mock draft there. All right, so then here, let's catch up people on a little bit at the beginning of the draft again. Obviously, the big surprise, Drake May going at 1, then followed by Caleb Williams. Cardinals get that Godfather offer to move back for essentially 2025 first-round pick, 2025 third-round pick, and picks 11 and 23. We tried to move back up. We're not able to at pick 6. You're able to see how the board fell for a lot of people. Interesting to see with some of the trades why it's so difficult to predict the draft, because you probably can say that if Rams are going to take Jerry Newton, that's something you can predict. Amarius Mims, that you can predict. Byron Murphy, you can predict. Cooper DeJean, you can predict. Cardinals are passing on Brian Thomas Jr. I actually do think that Ladd McConkey, even though the production at least is limited, and watching the tape for both of those, I think that there is a good spot for Brian Thomas Jr. to be an X, but I think you just need to get talent at the position, and I think that being able to bet on a guy like McConkey is pretty fun. All right, trade has been accepted there, so let's take a look at what we have. All righty, and it's going to be a little while, I think, but I am back on the board, I think, there it is, pick 216, so thanks for hanging out, guys, if you're still here. One more draft pick left to go before the night is done, and we'll be able to call it a night here with the Redbird Reboot surprise special episode here. Yeah, there you go. Michael Penix Jr. ends up going to Washington. Not as much of a surprise for people who've watched Daniel Jones play over the last few years and saw him have one decent season, but still never was able to get more, I think, than 12 touchdowns. Feels very much like the Giants are looking to move on from him. I did even reach out to see if the Giants were looking to make a move up to the number 4 overall pick. I didn't want to give up a second-round pick, but they were willing to even say, hey, if I can get Drake May, if he's there, I may be able to give you a first-round pick for next year. Of course, Jaden Daniels and Drake May actually all went into the top 3, and it was just J.J. McCarthy available. I think that's how it goes on draft day as well. Just panning through a lot of the different smoke in other places, you're able to really see that it just feels like that people are too high on Jaden Daniels, that the Giants, if they're not able to get up to pick 4 to get him, then that means that he's not going to be going anywhere outside of the top 3, which probably means that it's going to be either J.J. McCarthy or Drake May is going to be a top 3 quarterback, and one of those two is going to be available when the Cardinals pick. Ooh, I like that pick, at least for the Saints. Their biggest issue, of course, is going to be trying to get out from that cap stuff, and they'll probably need a rookie quarterback to do that. We got to see at least a couple of picks recapping. Amari Lassiter, a cornerback at least, went over to the Chargers. The Chargers have been really interesting. They've just been able to, I think that they originally had taken, who was it that they traded up for? Yeah, Keon Coleman. They were able to make a move up and take him. They also took Marvin Harrison Jr. with the 5th pick. If I was going to kind of get a redo, and sometimes, you can't really do a redo, but in this scenario, you're probably going to say as a Cardinals fan, you're not going to really be able to do that much with trading up in this scenario from pick 27, because people are not going to really want a 3rd-round pick. Easier to be take Marvin at the 1 spot, and then probably would take a look at making a move up if I could for a pass rusher. Maybe Laitu Latu actually does fall into that top 15. And then you can maybe trade up at least then from that 2nd round pick back into the 1st round late, like I did as far as with I think as far as in some other mock drafts that I have run. But yeah, so far that's the haul, and we're coming up at least on the final pick. At least time is counting down a lot sooner. So here's what we have as far as with the board rankings. This is just the native board as far as for how more group rankings go. You've got Edgerrin Cooper as a linebacker, a bit smaller. Tyler Nubin as a safety. You've got a pass rusher in Braden Trice and Jaden Fisk. You also have guys like in Roman Wilson, Peyton Wilson, and Chris Braswell as a pass rusher. Could get your bookend pass rushing tackles there. The other thing, at least, that I would be curious about here with the second round pick is if you're going to be helping, at least, what does the offensive line spot look like? What does the interior of the offensive line look like? There goes Ricky Pearsall. And what does what honestly does the other spots on defense look like? I think in this scenario, we'll take a look here at our top tackles, and yeah, you still have probably the worst of the tackles that's left as far as it goes, and you can see they've been kind of picked clean, at least, with the last of the big offensive tackles being Jordan Morgan. That goes in the top of the second round. You're probably looking at Patrick Paul, for the most part, out of Houston. He's very similar, honestly, to Josh Jones as far as a prospect. Hasn't gotten much first-round love. Zach Zinter is another tackle that a lot of people are looking at and saying that he could be a decent tackle as well. Zach Frazier is the one who, of course, is from West Virginia. That seems to be the one that could be lining up at center. I know some people like Zach Zinter a lot. For the interior offensive line, one of the guys that I really like here in these areas are Cooper Beebe, at least, is someone who's nice, but I think it's still a little bit early for him. And Christian Haynes is someone that I said if he's there in round 3, you probably would bet on that being a guy for the Cardinals. Interesting, at least, that we've got Roman Wilson still on the board. I have a feeling that there's a chance he could go here. Let's take a look now also at another spot in tight end. I am not nearly as high on Jatavian Sanders as others. The one that's interesting here would be a Theo Johnson and a Ben Sino. Both of those guys are freaky athletic as far as tight ends. You'd be putting together a interesting scenario here. If you are the Cardinals saying, hey, we're going to go ahead and grab our slot receiver, we're going to grab our tight ends. There you go with TJ Tampa off the board. One of the things I'm wanting to look at now, and let's take a look at the full board here as well and see just what we have. So I've been sent a trade offer. Now, this is fun to get to see this on the clock. Let's see what trade offers we have. Ooh, 222, 216, get a round 4 and a round 6. You know what? I've got a couple players I like on this spot, not liking enough to stay put here. I could probably take an Edgerrin Cooper and get another linebacker to help with the room. I'm going to go ahead here and I'm going to accept that request, move back a little bit for the future picks. So we'll be around here for a little bit longer, folks. All right, so we'll be picking here at the end of the second round. And I'm going to go ahead here and take a look at some of the other spots. So without looking at quarterback, one of the other spots I wanted to target is running back. Now, the Cleveland Browns may be taking one of the top guys, at least it's over here. Oh, they took the linebacker. There you go. But running back is something that I think for the Cardinals is more important than people think, because you take a look at the Cardinals and say, hey, you've got your running back, you've got James Conner with the age. I think being able to have a staple of running backs is super important. Even just last year, we saw with the Cardinals having Amari DiMercato, who was taking snaps versus Keontae Ingram. Huge difference. Being able to have an heir apparent to James Conner is something I've said that I think is more important in a run-first offense, which is what the Cardinals have. And so far, we've had no running backs have been taken yet. Between Trey Benson, Jonathan Brooks, and Blake Corum, those are the guys who are seemingly the top 3. I actually am a little different from some others. I like Braylon Allen more than some. He's got huge size, 245. He may end up being less Derrick Henry as the other guy that had that and crazy production. When you look at Wisconsin running backs, if you want to think of him as like a bigger version of a Melvin Gordon, who's probably a bit more raw. I mean, he's only, I think, 19, going to be 20 this season, a lot younger. If you wanted to say we can draft this guy here in round 2 or 3, put him behind the likes of a James Conner, seeing if he could develop, that may be a really good situation there. Let's take a look here and see what we have next with our picks. Let's take a look. All right, so we have now seen Edgerrin Cooper, Mike Sanaristi. Peyton Wilson is the guy that was another guy I was looking at curiously as far as the inside linebacker spot to see if that was a player that the Cardinals could take. I think that you can't take him first round despite those measurables. You have to be able to look at and say that he's enough of a risk with his health. He's been retired once, multiple shoulder injuries. He's either going to end up hitting like a solid linebacker for the first couple contracts. Maybe you end up seeing even a Leighton Vander Esch type of approach, or it could be where he just is a little bit too much wear and tear. Obviously, the Eagles feel more than comfortable enough there taking him in the second round. I've seen some people take him late first. I do not think that's something that should be done. That's just me overall. Let's see. So we now have a couple of picks before us. We got our top part of the board with Tyler Nubin, Braylon Trice. You got Braden Fisk. Also got the likes of a Roman Wilson and Chris Braswell here as well. Again, I'm not the biggest on Jatavion Sanders this high. Cameron Kitchens, unfortunately, he's got some production, but on tape, when I first watched him, it seemed like he would be probably needing a second safety to help him out because he just didn't have that same closing speed like you've been able to see from Budda Baker, like you've been able to see from Jalen Thompson. Malachi Corley, at least, a huge deep threat player there. You've got a couple of fun players that are left over here, at least, with like Cooper Beebe. Javon Bullard, of course, is a free safety that's left there. Ooh, Jacksonville Jaguars are up on the clock. So there's a couple of different places that I could go here. You could be able to look at a defensive lineman if you're the Cardinals. The other guys here like Braden Fisk and more. I think that there's probably going to be at least, Chris Jenkins, another one I was just about to say. He goes off the board here as well. One thing, at least with Arizona, that I'd be curious to see in the next couple picks is we see the Eagles are still picking here. You have, let me see if I'm able to make a quick trade request here. This is going to be one that may be a little bit controversial. Let's see where I go with here and with the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm going to see if I can trade that pick, and let's see if I can I add a player? I don't believe I can add a player in these scenarios, but in that case, I will look at ignoring it here. Let's go back to our board and see what they offer. So I'm going to see if I can get 2 second-round picks, but without being able to trade players. Yeah, that's how it goes sometimes. All right, Eagles are still on the clock. So if you guys have any thoughts, at least about what you'd be looking to take in this spot, you're looking at a cornerback has already been taken. You've got a edge rusher already taken. We've gotten a nice pick, at least for the most part. Yeah, that was a comment, at least here from Dana, saying 3/3 is pretty high. Yes, but it's only a 2-round mock. So, and obviously, people are going to view it differently. All right, Cardinals are on the clock. Let's see who the Eagles took. Would not shock me if they ended up taking... Oh, they took an inside lineman. That's great. BB's a good player. I was looking at him as a possible for the interior of the offensive line, so we're now on the clock. So there's a couple of options here. Obviously, I like Roman Wilson a ton from a talent standpoint. He's one of those guys that at 6'1", 192, he's maybe not the same size as other X receivers, but I think he's going to perform admirably. You got Tyler Nubin if you want to get a Budda Baker type of replacement. I think Braylon Trice at least has production. I just think he's not as athletic. Chris Braswell is one of those guys who I think checks a lot of boxes. Looking back down there, you also can say with a corner that you like a lot. I know that I've looked at some interior offensive linemen here. It just feels like that it's a little bit too early for still some of the linebackers. I do like a Christian Haynes on the interior of the offensive line, but I think, again, you can wait until the 3rd round. So I am going to be kind of pulling a little bit of a change. Depending on this trade offer. Let's see if someone's trying to get back into the 2nd round. We have Texans. Receive 222, move back for 227, 612. You know what? The player I'm looking at is still probably going to be there. I'll accept that trade, move back one more time. We're just going to keep trading back. Cardinals are now going to have enough picks that they're probably going to be hitting on the shotgun approach of a lot of those hitting. Let's see who the Texans are looking to grab here. Braden Fisk. There you go. They got the defensive lineman. That was one of the guys I looked at, but just didn't feel the same way about being able to go after him as far as for being there. I liked what I was getting as far as a draft offering there. And let's take a look and see what we have left. So we've got a couple more picks, and I will get off right here after the 227, at least for the most part. We can recap a little bit of what we've seen with this content creator mock draft. Obviously, the big difference, Drake May going at 1-1 overall ahead of Caleb Williams. I like Drake May a lot as a prospect. I think he should be the 2nd pick. I think he's not going to be the 2nd pick. Commanders, I think, in hiring Cliff Kingsbury, tipped their hand that they're probably going to go after that. We're also looking here at J.J. McCarthy was the big trade, which of course meant Marvin Harrison Jr. then went over here to the 1.5 overall. I'm going to check out the trade offer real quick here. And we've got offer for, that's 225 round 3, 440, trying to get back into the second round, but I've been trading down plenty enough for now. Yeah. Trades are reset after each selection. We also got to see 3 receivers at least went in the top 7 picks. So you got 4 quarterbacks, 3 receivers. I could see it very much going like there on draft day. I don't know if the Titans will take a receiver there, but I could see one of these teams trading back for another team with a receiver. I also think there's a chance the Cardinals could move up from pick 11 to pick 6, be able to get a Rome Odunze. Did make that offer. It didn't go through, which shows, I think, that there's times where a trade can make sense for both sides, but there's also times where sometimes teams say, hey, we got this guy on the board. For the most part, we got our receiver. It's good to go. Yeah, and then question at least about with Braden Fisk, at least. Dorless and Fisk issues with medicals versus the run. Yeah, our YouTube channel you can have comments on for those of you watching on YouTube. Thanks so much. Oh, Mason McCormick, South Dakota State. Now, I think it's a little early for him, at least with this round, because he's one of those guys who I think is a solid round 4 type of player. This is round 3. Obviously, he's going higher. Oh, Cowboys are getting a Jalen Wright. Very interesting. Looks like we've got another incoming trade here that's been received. Now 2025 round 2. I'm going to stick and pick, I think, here with this spot. Be able to get what I need to with the player who will be there on the board. We are coming up here now on to... so Cardinals afterwards have Latu. They get probably one of my favorite edge rushers in the draft. Those medical questions. He did clear those. He's one of those players who is probably your Batman to what I think would be a BJ Ojolari's Robin. So you got your 2 guys at least on the bookends. You've addressed the middle of the defensive line. You're probably going to be able to say that, hey, we as Cardinals fans are disappointed that we didn't get Marvin Harrison Jr., but we're able to at least address quite a few other needs in a different route. We got Quinion Mitchell, the cornerback 1. Cardinals have a huge need at receiver, huge need at corner, and a huge need, I think, at edge rusher, because right now you've got either BJ Ojolari takes that next step, or you're going to have Dennis Gardeck, and you've got your first round overall pick, who the Cardinals may be fine with on the other side, at least in the likes of Zaven Collins. And we were able to make a move at least after at 27 back to 29 and still got Ladd at McConkey at least, who I think is going to be a better pro than a collegiate player, simply because in Georgia, most of the move and Z type roles were being given to Brock Bowers instead of him. I think that when he gets to the pros, he's just going to be utilized in a different way. Some other interesting cases that popped up. No other quarterbacks went early enough, interestingly, until the second round. We got to see Jerry Newton went to replace the likes of... he was the other guy I was heavily considering with the 15th pick. Felt like at the end of the day, I put the corner need over the defensive lineman need, and felt that Quinion Mitchell, that's probably your cornerback 1, lockdown type of guy. He's the guy that's going to be playing against your DK Metcalfs and the like. Packers with another wide receiver and Adonai Mitchell, Jackson Powers Johnson, who I'd considered at least with pick 27, goes 1 pick ahead of me. I ended up trading back for the most part. You saw 2 more receivers go. Bills are now making their pick, which means we are just 1 away from our final pick of the night, Cardinals fans. Chris Braswell, the edge rusher. Ooh, that was one of the guys I was looking to potentially take here with this spot. Green Bay Packers are now here on the clock, and they end up taking Jaden Hicks, a strong safety, and we are now on the clock, Cardinals fans. So here, one of the cases that I have that I think is going to be very fun, and I'm kind of down to was within 2 players. I like Junior Colson as a linebacker, but in this scenario, there's one other way that I think that you can help Kyler Murray be happy. And that would be to take Roman Wilson here, the 6', 192 receiver who he gets open. He reminds me a little bit, at least, of the other Michigan receiver who's with the Houston Texans. I'll see if there's any trade offers that blow me away, but I'm assuming that we're just going to run out the clock here, folks. There you go. See, so just going to go ahead and reject that. I'm going to be taking Roman Wilson, the receiver. And now you can say, all right, Cardinals fans, you've got the first 2 rounds of tonight's 2-round mock draft are all completed. Cardinals take Roman Wilson. So now you can say, all right, how do the Cardinals look now with their team? Well, you've got a Cardinals team that has gotten an edge rusher one, you've got a cornerback one, and instead of going after and getting the offensive lineman, the interior guard, or the tackle, instead of getting the Marvin Harrison Jr., wasn't able to go back up and get the Rome Odunze. So what did I do with the extra draft pick? Took Ladd McConkey, took Roman Wilson. Suddenly you can start to see here, okay, you're going to have the corner number 1, wide receiver number 1 is set for you for the most part, but it's more of a wide receiver 1A and 1B. Roman's going to be able to, I think, fill in lovely as far as for one of those outside picks and players. And the Ladd McConkey, you're able to see whether he's the Z, whether he's the slot. You already have an X in Michael Wilson. This is more of a Green Bay Packers approach. We saw the Packers essentially draft a ton of talented mid-round receivers for Jordan Love as a rookie quarterback, and he really started to thrive at the end of last year in that run-heavy offense. That's really, I think, what's going to wrap it up for the most part with us today. Thank you guys again for tuning in. You guys, it's been an hour and 20 minutes again, so if you've watched both shows today, like, God bless you. It's a lot of Cardinals content to look through. We'll be back here again next Saturday going over at least just a little bit more of what we've seen with some Cardinals news. Maybe there will be at least a trade. Maybe there won't be. Have some other film to be able to go off of, continuing to go through Kyler's Eagles game. Thanks again so much for tuning in, everyone. It's been the Redbird Reboot, and my number of picks are out here. We are only a 2-round mock draft. That means it's time for me to log off. Take care, everyone.